Good morning, everybody. It's Sunday again. It's that time of the week. Yes, I'm totally very excited to be here. Because guess what? It's September now, which means it's spring and the brookies are outside. Did you guys enjoy the snow last week? The snow was really nice, really pretty, hey? All of this reminds us, with the snow in the spring, that God is in charge. Okay, so let's say with that, welkom maatjies by Sondagskool. Dis daai tyd van die week alweer. En wat ons doen as ons mekaar nie vir 'n hele ruk gesien het nie, ons groet mekaar mos, hè? We greet each other. And how do we greet each other? I don't know why you're fluffing with your paper over there. What are we supposed to do? And you guys at home, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to stop what we're doing, give me your undivided attention because I'm worth it. Whenever you meet somebody, honor them with your tongue. Yeah? Here we go. Hello, how are you? You are my friend and I love you. Hello, how are you? Jesus loves me. He loves you, and everybody. You guys can see. Right. Welcome everybody. You know now this is the part in the morning where you are now going to press pause for those of you at home. Eleanor, you know what to do here, my love. Ooh, and speaking of benevolence, Uncle Charles, did you see that our benevolence bin, Jonathan, did you see our benevolence bin has been emptied? Because what you can do now, we've been busy with online school now for almost 2 months. Can you believe it? I miss you terribly. So, going back to the original story. Benevolence. Our benevolence bin has been emptied because what we did is we brought all our stuff to Auntie Annie. So what you can do is put all your goodies in a packet. You can come and drop it off at the church building. Just remember to either phone or email Auntie Annie. Make a time. You can drop it off just so that we can be COVID friendly. And just as you know, like Uncle Dean says, we are COVID friendly here at the church building. We wash our hands, we sanitize them. My mask is here somewhere in my jacket pocket. Just so as everybody knows, I do wear my mask when I'm here. I just don't use it when I'm talking to you. And obviously Eleanor's my child, so she's okay. Right, Eleanor? So we did a sticker for being here. We've done a sticker for our benevolence item. And we've done a sticker for our Bible. Now we are also going to pause and do our memory verse. Yes, I gave you a memory verse last week. Why is it important to do a memory verse? Anybody know? Right. Hoekom is 'n onthouversie belangrik?
So you can, so if you don't have a Bible with you, someone asks you something about the Bible, you will already know.
Fantastic.
Already forgot, yeah.
The whole idea is, if you read in the Old Testament as well as in the New Testament, you will find several references where God speaks to us and He says, please, I've planted my word in your heart. Part of a memory verse is that I know, because I know my Bible that well, that memory verse is here and it's here, so that should anything happen and people say, God doesn't love you, you can go, no, that's not true. Of course God loves me. And He doesn't say that you must eat broccoli on Tuesdays either. There is no such verse. It's a verse, it's the book of Mom, chapter 1, verse 1. You have to eat broccoli. It's good for you. Right. So we said hello, we've done our attendance, and this is the part where you now do your memory verse. As I'm repeating myself, that kind of day. I'm repeating myself, okay? Memory verse.
Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Excellent. And what does that mean?
So if you treat a person in one way, it'd be only fair if they treated you in the same way.
Exactly. So if you lie to someone, you can't get upset if they lie to you. But if you're constantly polite to them, it is nice. You'll probably find as time goes by, they will then, if they weren't naturally nice to you, chances are they will be nice to you. Yeah? That kind of thing. But you do it because it's the right thing to do. Right, so what we're going to do is, I am now going to show you, I think this is the part of the morning where I then go, ooh, birthdays, I nearly forgot. There's a birthday with Mila. Mila, it's your birthday. When is this today? Because what's today's date? What is that? Here's the 5th. Oh. Mila, it was yesterday, the 4th. Happy birthday, baby girl. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Mila. Happy birthday to you. And many more. Hope you had a fantastic day, baby girl. And then to all our other little friends, enige ander maatjie wat verjaar het, even if I don't know who you are, and you had yourself a birthday en jy het verjaar, veel geluk met julle verjaarsdag. Ek hoop julle het baie lekker verjaar, né? Veel geluk. Right, this is the part we are now going to go on to, what do we normally do at this stage of the morning? We now go over books of the Bible. Uncle Charles, you mustn't throw me. That's books of the Bible. That's what's important. Because the whole Bible is made up of
66 books.
66. 66 boeke. Ons deel dit in? Twee. Die Ou Testament en die Nuwe Testament. Nee? We're going to do Old Testament books. We're going to start with the book of Hezekiah. I'm just going to call you Phoebe now.
There's no book of Hezekiah.
It's no book of Hezekiah. There was a book of Hezekiah. Jehoram? Book of Jehoram?
No.
No.
No, you're chasing your dad.
But he is. Jeroboam. Jeroboam. Right, can't even think. Can't even think straight. So early in the morning, I can't even think straight. It's good, so early. Right, here we go. Starting at. Oh, how many? Oh, I've got. How many? So we've got 66 books. Divide them into Old Testament, New Testament. How many books in the Old Testament? You should know this by now.
39.
39. How many in the New? 27. So 39 in die Ou Testament, 27 in die Nuwe. Starting at Genesis. Druk, pause, say for Mama. Tell Mom the books of the Bible while I do it with Eleanor. Okay, here we go.
Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth. 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Samuel,
Chronicles,
Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther, Psalm, Job,
Psalms,
Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Leviticus, Ezekiel, Daniel, Job, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Zechariah, Malachi.
Hold on, Eleanor. Well then, you guys at home. Right. This is now the part in the morning Uncle Charles will go, come take a look at the stuff you're going to need for your art, for your craft. So, and as always, there's probably something I've forgotten. So you're going to need your water, which means you need brushes because we're going to paint. And we've got some paint. Don't forget your paint. Then we've got some magnets. You've got your glue to put your magnets on. You've got some googly eyes. Googly eyes. You've got a nice peg like that. You've got some wool, got your scissors, got your template. And I think that's about all, but chances are there might be maybe some wipes if you want to wipe your hands. But I don't know. Right, here we go. So now what we're going to do is, now I'm going to tell you what our story is, and I'm going to give you all a big skunk. Now I'm going to give you all a big fright. I hope you guys can settle down because we're going to be reading lots of Bible books. So we are going to be doing the story of Joseph. Joseph has an extensive story in the Old Testament, especially in the book of Genesis. He's quite a pivotal figure in the Old Testament. Hy is 'n baie belangrike karakter in the Old Testament. A lot of people are going to say he doesn't exist. Listen, he did, because God put him in the Bible, so of course he existed. So, okay. Yes, he is. He is a historical figure, a very important historical figure, and there's so much that we can learn from him. Today we're going to read from Genesis 37 all the way to Genesis 46, and yes, we're going to read every single verse. Not. I almost had you there. No, I'm not going to read all the verses. We're just going to pick out key verses because there's something quite important that we want to learn from Joseph's life. Yeah, there's a couple of things there's so many lessons you can learn from the life of Joseph. Before I get there, I'm just going to do a little thing with you quick, Eleanor, quick. So you got your piece of paper, you at home, just quickly dash off. We'll wait for you. Go get yourself a sheet of paper. Dash off, I'll wait for you. Oh, you must have said go, quick. Oh, and then back. Right, so take your sheet of paper. You're going to turn it into a square. So Uncle George, you're going to have to focus in on me what I'm doing. So you've got to fold it into a triangle. Fold it into a triangle like that. Right. Once you've got your triangle, you're going to trim off this bit that's here. Right. And use that bit, so you can put that one side. Right, once you've got, that's it. Once you've got your triangle, you're going to fold your triangle in half again.
Makes a small triangle.
Yeah, so you literally are making a smaller triangle. Just make sure that when you fold, you've got to be quite accurate about this. Make sure that your points match. Look at that, have the cut out. Okay, then what you're going to do is you're now going to fold this into three. This is where it gets a bit tricky. I tried to find the easiest one. I googled a couple of recipes on how to make snowflakes, and some of them were like, whoa, this is just a bit too complicated. So I'm going to go with the easy one. I'm going to fold this in three. So you're going to fold that like that. Fold that in half.
Like this?
Yeah, perfect. Fold that in half like that. Can everybody see? Right, perfect. And then you're going to take the other side. No, don't. Just leave it like that. Now you're going to bring this. And you're going to fold it like that, because you basically folded it into three. So you've got something that looks a bit like that. Yeah? Now what you're going to do is you're going to nib that bit off, this top bit. Right. Okay, so now the question you might be asking yourself, I'm going to stop you at this point, and I'm going to argue, you're probably going to say, now Auntie Tish, what on earth are you making a snowflake for? Was it because we had snow last week? It's because I want you to understand that, think of this as your life, right? Right now, it's pretty much perfect. Look how nice and sparkly it is. Nothing the matter with it, yeah? Other than cutting the nibs off, we haven't done anything to it. So this is your life. So what you're going to do is every time something happens to you in your life, so now we're going to cut a little thing out. So you're going to make all sorts of, if you want to, you can draw a pattern, or you can just cut out shapes. I'm just going to do this, and I'm going to do some triangles. And what I want you to imagine is that every time something not nice happens to you, it leaves a mark, yeah? It leaves a mark on you. It leaves a mark on a person, right? So every time somebody shouts at you, every time somebody's rude to you, maybe somebody gave you a smack, maybe somebody stole something from you, maybe your dog died, all those things that make you sad. I want you just to reflect on those. And this is every time you make an incision into this little thing. And so this is what we're going to take from Joseph's life. So every time something not nice happened to him, think about that. What did he do? This is what we're going to read about Joseph. How did he respond to the adverse things? And that's what we're going to read now. Basically, each of these incisions is a sort of like a symbol of stuff, bad, not nice stuff that happens to you. Yeah? That can happen to your people. Right, are you ready, Eleanor? So now very carefully, scissors off my hands. Right, so very carefully. Sure, Eleanor. Do people tear your hair? Is that when people tear your hair out? So very carefully, you're going to unfold unfold, and look at what you've got. Isn't that pretty? Hey? So the point of this lesson, let me put it, see, maybe you can get a better, it looks much better. Look at that. That looks really pretty, hey? And the point of this exercise is to demonstrate, which we're going to learn now in Joseph's life, is that bad things can happen to you, and you have a choice whether to turn it into something for good, like your snowflake, or if you're going to be quite miserable about it. Okay. So Eleanor, whenever you are ready, we can start reading. En dis die hele idee, kyk hoe mooi is dit, my second. How beautiful is that? That is really, really pretty, Eleanor. Really, really pretty. Okay? Love it, my angel. You did such a good job. Such a good job. Lovely, man. Lovely, lovely, lovely. And speaking of lovely, while I'm on this point, and I remember, I'm going to say it now before I forget. Julle by die huis, you guys at home, I just want to say thank you so much for all your photos that you've been sending of all the things that you've been doing. Baie dankie vir al die foto's wat julle vir ons stuur van die goed wat julle maak by die huis. It's so encouraging. So please keep sending it. We miss you desperately. It will be so lovely when we can have you back here at the church building. Dit gaan so lekker wees as ons weer hier by die kerkgebou kan wees. So maar in die tussentyd stuur vir my julle prentjies van die goed wat julle maak. Well, I love the little ones. I love the little hands. Anyway, maar vreeslik baie dankie. Thank you very much. Nee? Right, here we go. So, as I said to you before, ons lees van Genesis hoofstuk 37 tot en met Genesis hoofstuk 46. So Genesis 37 through to Genesis 46. Now we're not going to read every single bit from those particular chapters. I'm just going to give you a broad overview, and we're going to touch on a couple of key verses that Eleanor, that I pre-looked at for you, that I want you to take out of the story. The point of today's story, I know I'm going on a bit, but the point of today's story is stuff is going to happen to you. You have a choice. Goed gaan met jou gebeur. Mense gaan goed aan jou doen. People are going to do stuff to you that's not fair, because I know there's a lot of that going on at the moment. You have the choice. Jy hierdie besluit. Gaan jy dit vir goed gebruik, of gaan jy dit gebruik om lelik te wees? Are you going to use it for good, or are you going to use it so that you can be ugly to people? That's your choice, right? I can't make that decision for you. Ek kan nie daaroor vir jou maak. Right, Eleanor, open up your Bible. Genesis, hoofstuk 37. Genesis chapter 37. Right, and in Genesis chapter 37, at this stage of the game, you will know that Joseph was his father's favorite. And what did his father give him? Eleanor, can you remember what Joseph's papa gave him?
Yes. He gave him a kind of lots of colors.
Of many colors. Right? And tell me, did you know that if you had a coat, back in the day, this is just a side lesson, archaeological side lesson. The reason why, you might say, so what about if you got a fancy coat? I mean, you just pop into Mr. Price or wherever and you get a coat. Okay. What I need you to understand is, back in the day, clothes were not easy to come by, right? They were pretty much all handmade. You had to have yourself some sheepies, and you can go shear your sheepies, and then you have to spin the wool, and then you have to go dye it. So it was quite a process to make the linen, the fabric for the clothing. Your clothing also showed you what kind of a job you did. So if you were a worker, think about it. If I had this fancy robe, would I be out there picking grapes or hoeing the garden if I had this fancy coat, strolling around the place, picking my, hoeing for potatoes? Or hauling the water, my fancy robe, my lovely robe that Joseph had. No. I would have had my practical clothes with my practical shoes. Chances are I didn't even have any shoes back in Joseph's day. Ek sou nie skoene gehad het nie. So the fact that he had this colourful robe would have told people, this chap did how much? Not a whole lot. Because you can't do much in a fancy robe other than swan around the place. The cup habits I had. That's what you can do in a fancy robe. Yeah? If you've got practical clothes, you can be out there in the garden doing what you need to do. Yeah. So you can understand why his brothers would have been like, wait, hang on a minute. Well, I have to do everything. Yeah. So net dat julle weet. So on a serious note, your clothing would have told you, and that's why it's such a thing. This coat is actually quite a big deal. And also, the other thing is that there's a cost involved, because in order to get color, you would have had to have gone quite far or bought the dyes for it or something like that. So it would have cost a lot of money to make. Ja, dit sou geld gekos het, né? Kom geld. Yes, no.
That if you had purple on your robe, it was just purple, that meant that you were really rich. If you were a rich person,
yes, because that would have cost quite a lot of money. Where was that? Do you know that lady in the New Testament? Lydia, I think her name is, and she was selling. I think it's Lydia. I'm open to correction. She sold purple garments, and purple was the color of royalty, but it came from a little sea creature that they used to. There was a city that was famous for that. They used to crush them, and that made the purple dye. And that's why, and it was quite expensive. Well, particularly expensive. And that's why, if he had purple in his robe, they would have been like, that cost up the you know what could have done with that money? You know, like Dad says all the time. And it cost too many, you know what could have bought with all that money? Right. So, he's got this coat, Joseph's got this coat. So what happens? We're digressing, we need to move. You know? Right, so he's got this coat. Then, coupled with that, Joseph also has a couple of dreams. The one that I particularly want to look at, if you take a look at the picture, you can see there's a sheaf of grain. So back in the day, when you harvested the grain, you put them in piles called sheaves. Yeah? So what he says, he goes into verse 5. He says to his brothers, Joseph had a dream. This is now Genesis hoofstuk 37 vers 5. You know? Joseph had a dream. Please. From 5 through to 10.
Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, listen to this dream I had. We were binding the sheaves of grain out in the field when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it. His brother said to him, do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us? And then they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. Then he had another dream, and he told it to his brothers. Listen, he said, I had another dream, and this time the sun and moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me. When he told his father as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, what is this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you?
Verse 11, his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in his mind. Okay, now we're going to move on. Following this, you know the story where his brothers, his dad asks him to go and check on his brothers, because now we're moving a little bit further in the chapter. The brothers are out, they're shepherds, they're looking after the flock, and the dad says, just go check on your brothers, make sure that they're okay. And the brothers conspire to kill him. Yeah? Where is it? Verse 18 of chapter 37. It says, but they saw him in the distance. It says Joseph went after his brothers and found them near Dothan, but they saw him in the distance, and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. Okay. But now we're going to go fast forward to verse 26 of chapter 37, and it says,
when Judah said to his brothers, what will we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hand on him. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood. His brothers agree.
Okay, so now he's going to get sold. You remember the story where they take his coat, they obviously toss him in a pit while they're waiting. Yeah, they get his robe and they cover it in some goat's blood, and they go to the dad and they say, oh, look, Dad. They go to Jacob, who happens to be Dad, and they say, oh, look, no, he's been killed. So they're actually telling a big fat lie. Yeah? Oh, he's been killed. And Jacob is almost inconsolable. Yeah? at the death of his beloved Joseph. Yeah? Meanwhile, Joseph is on his way down to Egypt. Hy gaan nou Egypte toe. We're going to pick it up in chapter 39. Ons gaan nou by Genesis 39. Right, so let's go to Genesis chapter 39. He's now been sold in Egypt. You will remember, hy werk nou by Potifar. Hy werk nou in sy huis. Potifar het 'n vrou lief. En blijkbaar was Joseph baie aantrekkelijk. Apparently he was quite handsome, the Bible says. Quite good looking, easy on the eye. And Mrs. Potiphar says, that, you know. And she makes some suggestions and he's like, hey, Connor, I'm not doing that. That because if you look in verse 9, he says, how then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? Because when Mrs. Potiphar makes some suggestions, he's saying, I'm not just sinning against my master. That's bad enough. He says, but I'm sinning against the God of heaven. Yeah? And she gets quite upset. Mevrou Potifar raak so effe ontstel, nee, want sy het nou 'n plan. En hy besluit, nee. And so she accuses him of doing a dastardly deed. And he ends up in prison. Verses 19 to 20, please, Eleanor.
19 to 20.
Of chapter 39.
When his master heard the story, his wife told him, saying, this is how your slave treated me. He burned with anger. Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined.
Okay, right. Sure, so now the story is taking quite a bad turn. So now he's a jailbird. Yeah? So first he gets thrown into a pit, sold into slavery. Now he lands up in prison. But what I also want you to pick up, when he was at Potiphar, he rose in ranks. God blessed him. God watched over him. And that's the other thing I want you to take out of the story for today. God made sure that he was well looked after. He became high in rank in Potiphar's house. When he's in prison, again, God is with him. He's not just this jailbird in chains in the corner, like with fleas all over him and that kind of thing. No, God blesses him and he gives him wisdom. All right. So what happens is we're going to go into verse chapter 40 now, right? Now this is the well-known story where these two chaps in prison. There's the Pharaoh's cupbearer and Pharaoh's baker, and they've been chucked into prison for whatever reason. Pharaoh is in a bad head, and he goes like, in jail with you guys, sick and tired of you guys. You're annoying me. To jail. I don't know, the Bible doesn't say, right? It said they offended their master. Who knows what they did? You know, maybe they just looked at him funny. Gave him a stale biscuit or something. So I don't know. Anyway, so they're in jail. So, point is, they're in jail. And what happens is, in chapter 14, in hoofstuk 40, is, ons lees, albei van hulle het drome. Both of them have some dreams. Alright, you read that the cupbearer, if we just, I want to get this right in the correct order, where is it? So it says in verse 9, the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream. And he told him, in my dream I saw a vine in front of me, and on the vine were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, it blossomed, and its clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand. I took the grapes, squeezed them, squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup and put the cup in his hand. And so Joseph says to him, this interpretation doesn't come from me. Joseph is, he makes quite sure that they understand. So Joseph is able to tell Pharaoh. Joseph is able to tell the cupbearer what his dream means. He basically says, in 3 days, you will then be back in your position with Pharaoh. And the baker's like, oh, cool, that sounds like a good interpretation. I think I'll tell you mine. No, it's a positive spin on it. So then the baker goes to him and he says, Jonna, I had these 3 baskets with all sorts of baked goodies on my head. And he said, but the birds of the air came and just like I had to fight them off kind of thing. And so Pharaoh says to him, that in verse 6, okay, so verse 16, when the chief baker saw that Joseph had given a favorable interpretation, he said to Joseph, I too had a dream. on my head were 3 baskets of bread. In the top basket were all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating them out of the basket on my head. And basically what Joseph, he doesn't give him a favorable report on his dream. He says 3 days from now. Tickets, you know? Right. But so it says there, in verse 21 of chapter 14, it says, so Pharaoh restored the chief cupbearer to his position, so that he once again was put the cup into Pharaoh's hand, but he hanged the chief baker, just as Joseph had said to them in his interpretation. And unfortunately, our story takes a bit of a turn here because the cupbearer, because Joseph had said to him, when you have this favorable interpretation, because obviously you're going to be seeing Pharaoh, why don't you just do it? Please, I'm innocent. I'm innocent. No? The cupbearer says, no, promise. And that's the other thing you have to remember is people will promise you things. You've got to give them time to remember their promise. Yeah? And in this case, how long did it take? What does the verse say at the end, the last verse there of chapter 14? I don't know. What does it say? It says,
the chief cupbearer, however, did not remember Joseph. He'd forgotten.
Right, now, chapter 41. I'm going to go to chapter 41. And I want you to read from verse 1 through to 8 for me, please. Eleanor? Chapter 41, Genesis hoofstuk 41, verses 1 tot 8. Vers 1 tot 8. Verses 1 to 8.
When 2 full years had passed, Pharaoh had a dream. He was standing by the Nile, when out of the river came up 7 cows, sleek and fat, and they grazed among the reeds. After them came 7 other cows, ugly and gaunt, came up of the Nile and stood beside those on the riverbank. And the cows that were ugly and gaunt ate up the 7 sleek fat cows. When Pharaoh had come, he fell asleep again and had a second dream. 7 heads of grain, healthy and good, were growing on a single stalk. After them 7 other heads of grain sprouted, thin and scorched by the east wind. The thin heads of grain swallowed up the 7 healthy, full heads. Then Pharaoh woke up. It had been a dream. In the morning his mind was troubled. So he sent for all the magicians and wise men of Egypt. Pharaoh told them his dreams, but no one could interpret them for him.
Okay. Our story now takes a good turn, because then the rest of this particular chapter, chapter 41, yes, the cupbearer then says, oh, hang on a minute, I remember there was this chap when I was in prison. His name was Joseph. He's really good at interpreting dreams. Very favorable one. So they say, okay, so Pharaoh says, fine. Kidding it. So basically, chapter 41, we read Joseph is brought before Pharaoh, he's tidied up, cleaned up, had a bath, shaved, all the rest of it, smelling pretty. And Pharaoh tells him his dream. And Joseph says to him, and so now the one sort of side thing I want you to see here is, one of the side things I just want to, yes, my hair sticker.
No. I realized that like 2 years is like 740 days. So that's how long Joseph was in prison.
Yeah, and that's what I need you to remember is sometimes you've got to let people, and sometimes it's 2 years, allow them to remember. Even if you remember, give them a chance to remember, you know? And sometimes maybe you need to forget whatever it is they promised to do for you, you know? But I'm going to leave that for you. Julle moet maar besluit, wat julle daarmee wil maak. But 2 years, yeah, in 2 years. And what I want you to take from this is although the cupbearer had forgotten Joseph, who remembered him?
God.
God remembered him. So even if people forget you, what you need to understand, wat julle moet verstaan is, die Here sal julle altyd onthou. God will always remember you. And our memory verse is going to be Romans 8 verse 28, which says that all things will work out for the good of those who love God. Okay, so long, because we like our stories take quite long. So basically the story ends well because Joseph explains to Pharaoh, it's not Joseph who is able to interpret dreams. It's God who gives him the ability. Again, another thing for you to remember. All the things that you can do, al die goed wat jy kan doen, waarmee jy so goed is, the things that you are so good at, because all of you are good at so many things. Onthou net, it's God that gives you that ability, not you. It's God. God gives you the ability. And it's your decision what you're going to do with that ability. Yeah? And so Joseph gives God the recognition, just rightfully so. Right? Interprets the dream. You know that it's a well-known story. That's a story wat ons baie goed ken. Basically, Egypt is going to have a famine. They're going to have 7 plentiful years, and they're going to have 7 really bad years. And God says it's going to be so bad that you won't even remember how wealthy Egypt once was. That's going to be a really, really bad famine. And just as God predicted, and so, but then Pharaoh says, now who am I going to put in charge? Who am I going to put in charge of collecting all the stuff and putting everything together? And guess who they put in charge? Dad. No. Joseph. They put Joseph. The cupbearer. No. Joseph. So he basically, you'll read in the Bible, it says, he's basically second only to Pharaoh. So Joseph speaks with the authority. It's not, gaan nie autoriteit sê, because that's not even an Afrikaans. Hy het die mag van Pharaoh. Nee? So when he speaks, he is speaking for Pharaoh. No? Dis wat met Joseph gebeur. Hy is nou tweede in die land. Nee? And so they're growing grain, and he's building cities, and he's putting grain in the silos, and he's collecting everything. True to God's word, the famine happens. And who should come visiting? But his brothers. Because the famine extends from Egypt. You can go look on your atlas where Egypt is. It extends all the way from Egypt up into Canaan land, where his brothers are living. And it gets so bad they can't anymore. Jacob sends his sons to Egypt to go because they've heard reports that there's grain there. And it actually says Joseph eventually stopped keeping a record of how much grain was being collected. That's how much they were able to store in the healthy years. And basically what happened is, as the famine happened, people started, eventually they sold their livestock, they sold their whatever they could sell to buy grain, and so forth, and then their land, then their houses, and eventually they sold themselves. This is now the Egyptians, yeah. They eventually sold themselves into slavery. That's how bad the famine got, right? So now it extends all the way up into Canaan. Those good folk come down, now they're looking for food. We read that in Genesis chapter 45, verse 7, what eventually happens is, it's a long story, it's quite complicated. Joseph sees his brothers, he recognizes them, they don't recognize him, because obviously you've got to remember in Egypt, these guys were wearing makeup and different kinds of clothing. So, and time has passed, a lot of time has passed. Think about it. He spent, I don't know how many years in Potiphar's house, he spent 2 years in prison, plus however many others. Plus he spent there 7, so there's 14 years, because there was 7 good years, 7 famine years, or that kind of thing. So there's an amount of time has passed since he was in the pit, sold into slavery, and his brother seeing again. You do change. Go look at your baby photos and see who you look like. Oh, that's me. And look at yourself now. Yeah. So there's a change. So obviously they're not going to recognize him, but he recognizes them. All right. And to cut a very long story short, because we, in the interests of time, we pick up, eventually Joseph makes himself known to his brothers. Okay, there's a trip to Canaan, coming back, there's a brother put in jail, and they've got to get Jacob to come here, and all of that. So all of this is happening. And in chapter 45, we're going to read in verse 7, Eleanor, if you can read me, chapter 45 and verse 7. This is where Joseph makes himself known to his brothers. What does it say? No, start in verse 6. Start in verse 6 for me.
For 2 years now there has been famine in the land, and for the next 5 years there will be no plowing and reaping. But God sent me ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance.
Okay. So that's the last thing that I just want to say this one. Dit is die laaste ding vir vandag se storie, né? So in verse between 6 and 7. Okay, so only 2 years of the famine have started, there's another 5 coming, né? Joseph sê vir sy broers, think about this. I actually just want you to stop. Dink mooi hieroor, né? Die goeie, soos wat ons nou hier gesê het, met ons sneeuvlokkie, with our snowflake. And we said, all these incisions that we make represent the things that people have done to you, or said to you, or been unkind to you, all the rest of it. I want you just to stop. Don't speak word. Don't you think about this is for you to answer for yourself. Jy moet vir yourself besluit. Don't you think Joseph had every right to be upset and angry and they were mean to me and I'm just going to get them back and you bear this grudge. They were mean to me, so I'm not going to talk to them anymore. I'm just going to avoid them. I'll be polite. I'll just go, they say I'll say hello, but like, I don't really mean it. Is that enough? And you won't forgive them? Like, no, because they were really mean to me, whatever the case is, whatever somebody's done to you. Joseph had every right to be unforgiving towards his brothers. Look what they did to him. They threw him in a pit. They sold him into slavery. He ended up in jail. I don't know how long he sat there. Jail could not have been a fun place. Okay? And he's away from his family. Think about that. He's separated from his dad. Okay, it's because his mom has passed away. But he's separated from his dad and his brother for an extended period of time. Brothers. Don't you think he had every right to be annoyed or angry or upset? Yeah. And instead, what does he say? In verse 7, Eleanor, what did he say?
But God sent me ahead of you to preserve for you orange on earth and to save your lives by a great deliverance.
Okay. He decides, Joseph, this speaks to his character, that he can understand that God is using him. And this is what I need you to understand. God is using him. Die Here gebruik van hom to do a good thing. And it's pointless. It's pointless having an unforgiving heart. It really is. Because we can have tot-out scores like this. And I promise you, you will always lose. I will always lose. I will always have done far worse things. Okay? And that's what I need you to remember. Work on your forgiving heart. And who can give you a forgiving heart? God. If you spend enough time in God's word, as jy genoeg tyd in die Here se woord spandeer, you will find it easier to develop a forgiving heart. Okay, right, here we're going to do our craft. Let's get all our bits and pieces together. Over here. Right, Eleanor, so first thing you're going to do is cut out your little coat. And while you are doing that, I'm going to cut you some hair. The wool is going to be Joseph's hair. We're just going to give him black hair. Might have had brown hair. I don't know. We are Joseph. Black hair. Should we give him long hair? I think we could give him long hair. It sounds like a black. No, not. Put your glue. Put some glue on here. Just on the half, because you don't have hair on the front of your face. What if Joseph had a beard? He might have had a beard. I don't know. I'm going to put some hair on the man. Check it out. Put some hair on Joseph. We can trim it later. Okay, now what you're going to do is, you're then going to take your paints. You're going to paint your coat, please, madam. You're going to sidetrack with magnets. You need to paint. Alright, so while you're busy with that, also I've got your brush there. While you're busy with that, I'm just going to give you some eyes. You can choose any. You should have a selection of eyes. You can give him like bug eyes. I don't know if you want to give him big eyes, or if you want to give him little eyes. What do you want to do, Eleanor? Because you've got these really tiny little eyes. Tiny little eyes, or do you want big eyes? Glue on the magnet, you put your wood glue. So now obviously, because you're doing this now, you're going to have to wait before you can actually use it. So don't go and try and stick it on the fridge now, because it's not going to work. And we use the little eyes. When you see the little eyes, not the big eyes, because the big eyes look completely wrong. And Joseph was good. You can just trim his hair down. There we go. Beautiful. See, Eleanor? Okay, do that. Push back. Put the eyes back in. I'll wait for that. And that is how easy this craft is. So now you're going to take your guide. That is looking beautiful. Eleanor. Happy Joseph.
So you got lipstick then?
Yes, he's got no man. Does not have lipstick on. Look at that. Happy Joseph. Awesome. It's exactly that.
Very good.
And then you're going to just paint and just do that. So if you can see now, you paint and paint and paint, and then you're just going to plop his top on top. Excellent. And then there is your memory verse. You can use your extra glue from your brush, just like that. And there you go. Beautiful. No, not on the front.
Yeah, on the front.
You can maybe put it at the bottom of his coat or in the middle of it. No, okay, it's yours. So you can decide where you want to put it. I won't boss you. Maybe I would say halfway up. Yeah, there. I think there's quite nice. Excellent. And then just try and stick it down. Beautiful. And that is your little Joseph. And now you just leave him in a spot so that he can dry. Don't try and go put him on the fridge now, because he will just slide off. Everything will just be like this paint glue mess. So we're like, ah. And Ditesh does all these bum crafts. No, she doesn't. Listen to me now. Let him dry. He looks so cute. Look at that. Okay, so Eleanor, go find Romans 8:28. Read what it says, because that is your memory verse for next week. And Romans, is it Old Testament or New Testament?
Old Testament. Yeah, New Testament, sorry.
Give me a bit of a fright there, babe. Romans is in the New Testament, after the book of Acts. Go past the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Find the book of Acts, then you should find the book of Romans. Chapter 8, and verse 28. What does it say?
And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose.
But I just want the first part. So that would
And
be?
we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him.
That's what I want you to take. So in all things, good or bad, this is your encouragement. God will work it for good. God will remember you, which means that you have the capacity to forgive. Nee? Jy kan vir mense vergewe, want jy weet in alles werk die Here vir alles wat sleg is vir goed. Nee. Right, and not this, how cute is that? That actually came out way better than I expected it to. So cute. Right, Eleanor, this is the part where we are going to pray. God has time to listen to me, listen to me, listen to me. God has time to listen to me. God loves you.
Dear God, thank you for all the wonderful things that you have been doing for us. And thank you for all the sacrifices that you made for us so that we can be happy. Can you please help those who aren't as fortunate as us and we have to have a home and a family? And please help those who don't know about you. And you please help everyone get to go to heaven. And thank you for this lesson. And you please keep us all safe. And bless us with the wonderful Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Eleanor. That was beautiful. Fluit, ons stories uit vir die week. Have a lovely week. Remember, God loves you. God made you. And take that knowledge and share that with the people that you come into contact with. Thank you, my angels. See you. Have a good week. Bye. How cute is that?